Hello, and welcome to this BritLit 10 video podcast on early modern poetry. Today, Lesson 2, the sonnet comes to England. Before we begin, I ask that you give the material the time and the attention that it deserves. I reserve the right to give you a pop quiz on any homework assignment, including this video podcast. You may also be held responsible for this material on high-value assessments, such as projects, essays, tests, and the semester exam. Please resist the temptation to multitask and close all of the programs on your computer except those that you might use for note-taking. As you watch and listen, take notes, stopping and replaying the video as necessary. Be prepared to apply what you've learned in this video to your understanding of the poetry that we will read both in class and at home. Let's begin. We'll start with a quick recap. In the previous video podcast, we began with an overview of the sonnet, paying particular attention to its Italian origins. We also looked at one kind of sonnet, the Petrarchan or Italian sonnet. In that video, you learned about the Italian sonnet's structure, the octave, the sestet, and the volta that signals the transition from one to the other. You will remember that structure is the key to understanding how a sonnet makes its meaning. The octave and the sestet have very specific roles to play, and if you know what those roles are, you can unlock the meaning of the poem. You also learned that there are two rhyme schemes for the Italian sonnet. The rhyme scheme of the octave is the same, but the rhyme scheme of the sestets are different. You also learned what a conceit is, as well as two types of conceits that are important to understanding the sonnet: the Petrarchan conceit and the eternalizing conceit. The Petrarchan conceit, you will recall, depicts a situation in which the speaker is in love with a woman who will never love him back. The poet uses the eternalizing conceit to woo the woman, comparing his poetry to long-lasting things like statues or buildings or features of the natural world, and promising to make the woman immortal through his poetry. You also learned that a familiar idea is at the heart of these two conceits: the power of language. Through the sonnet, the poet demonstrates his skill with words, creating a world in which the speaker must strive for the woman's love and offering that woman the promise of eternal life. In this lesson, Lesson 2, we will cover the following: the sonnet's migration to England and its rise as the dominant form of English poetry, the major characteristics of the English sonnet, and the importance of structure in reading a sonnet. So let's take a look at how the sonnet comes to England. Sir Thomas Wyatt was a soldier, a diplomat, and a knight under King Henry VIII. As part of his job, Wyatt would travel a lot, and he brought the sonnet back to England after reading Petrarch during one of his trips to continental Europe. One of the key innovations that Wyatt made was a restructuring of the sonnet, changing it from an octave and a sestet to 3 quatrains and a couplet. Wyatt wasn't alone in his love for the sonnet. His fellow English aristocrat, Henry Howard, Earl of Surrey, also encountered Petrarch's work on his trips to Italy. Like Wyatt, Surrey brought them back to England and translated them into his native language. Like Wyatt, Surrey too wrote sonnets of his own. Surrey's most important contribution to the sonnet was his decision to change the rhythm and the meter to one better suited to the English language: iambic pentameter. Thanks to these introductions and innovations, in the second half of the 16th century, sonnet writing became a sensation amongst the English aristocracy. Anyone who was anyone at court, anyone who wanted to be part of the in-crowd, was writing sonnets. It was absolutely the thing to do, and everyone was doing it. With a few notable exceptions, however, the sonnets written by the English aristocracy, although plentiful, were not very good. Eventually, the sonnet caught the attention of people like Shakespeare, truly talented writers who understood, as few people do, how language works. With that, what started out as a fad amongst the English nobility became the dominant form of English poetry for the next 300 years. Before we move on to look at an actual English sonnet, let me repeat something that I said in Lesson 1. An important step in learning how to read a sonnet is to understand its structure, what the parts are, how each one works, and how it relates to the other parts of the poem, and to the poem as a whole. The Petrarchan sonnet consists of an octave and a sestet. The octave sets up a situation, and the sestet responds to that situation. There's a logical relationship between the parts of the poem, and they work together to make the poem's meaning. As you will soon see, this is true of the English sonnet as well. So let's take a look at the structure of an English sonnet. The English sonnet has 4 components, 3 quatrains and a couplet. Each quatrain is 4 lines long, and the couplet is 2 lines long. The first quatrain, lines 1 through 4, sets up a situation, presents a theme, or makes an argument. Quatrain 2, lines 5 through 8, develops the situation, theme, or argument that quatrain 1 sets up. Quatrain 3, lines 9 through 12, further develops the situation, theme, or argument of quatrains 1 and 2. And finally, the couplet, lines 13 and 14, offers a conclusion, emphasis, or surprise twist to the theme presented in quatrains 1, 2, and 3. As you will be relieved to hear, I am sure, there is but one rhyme scheme for the English sonnet. Here it is. A, B, A, B, C, D, C, D, E, F, E, F, G, G. Here's a sonnet that most of you have already read, Shakespeare Sonnet 130. Let's read it again. My mistress's eyes are nothing like the sun. Coral is far more red than her lips red. If snow be white, why then her breasts are dun. If hairs be wires, black wires grow on her head. I have seen roses damasked, red and white, but no such roses see I in her cheeks. And in some perfumes is there more delight than in the breath that from my mistress reeks. I love to hear her speak, yet well I know that music hath a far more pleasing sound. I grant I never saw a goddess go, my mistress, when she walks, treads on the ground. And yet, by heaven, I think my love as rare as any she belied with false compare. Here we note the sonnet's rhyme scheme. Sun rhymes with dun, red rhymes with head, white rhymes with delight, cheeks rhymes with reeks, no rhymes with go, sound rhymes with ground, and rare rhymes with compare. It is sometimes said that an easy way to tell if a sonnet is Italian or English is to look for the rhyming couplet at the end. But, as you will see, this method is not without its risks. Many sonnets that we will read in this class have both English and Italian qualities, and I will require you to be able to tell me whether a given sonnet is Italian or English or both. This example, however, is 100% English. Again, let's concentrate only on the structure. Here is the first quatrain, lines 1 through 4. The first quatrain sets up the situation. The second quatrain, lines 5 through 8, develops that situation, building upon the idea expressed in quatrain 1. The third quatrain develops that idea further still, building on the ideas expressed in quatrains 1 and 2. Finally, the couplet offers a conclusion, an emphasis, or a twist ending. That's the structure of the sonnet. Now let's use that structure to determine the poem's meaning. Again, we'll keep our analysis brief since this is only an example. In the first quatrain, the speaker tells us that my mistress's eyes are nothing like the sun. Coral is far more red than her lips red. If snows be white, why then her breasts are dun. If hairs be wires, black wires grow on her head. In other words, the speaker is telling us, my gal, she ain't pretty. In the second quatrain, the speaker develops this idea. I have seen roses damasked, red, and white, but no such roses see I in her cheeks. And in some perfumes is there more delight than in the breath that from my mistress reeks. In other words, the speaker's woman is sickly looking, and her breath stinks. The third quatrain develops the idea of the woman's unattractiveness further still. I love to hear her speak, yet well I know that music hath a far more pleasing sound. I grant I never saw a goddess go, my mistress when she walks treads on the ground. That is to say, that her voice is annoying, and she's a bit of a klutz. And now for the rhyming couplet, which can offer a conclusion, or an emphasis, or a twist ending. And yet, by heaven, I think my love is rare, as any she belied with false compare. In this sonnet, the couplet offers a twist ending. Despite how unattractive the speaker's girl is, he loves her, and he wouldn't trade her for anyone else in the world. As we bring this video to a close, let me make clear why structure is one of the sonnet's most important conventions. The key to reading any work of literature is to determine how the language works. In a sonnet, the structure offers a ready-made map for that language. Given words have to do certain work depending on where they are in the poem. If you understand how a sonnet is structured, if you can read the map, you can examine the language to see how it meets the needs of each section, to see how it works both on its own and in relation to the rest of the poem. That concludes this Brit Lit 10 video podcast on the early modern sonnet. We will spend the next few weeks reading sonnets, writing about sonnets, and writing sonnets of our own. See you then.